Hi guys, Ben here from Mouth of the Tyne. Welcome back to another Full-Tyne Whistle. Joined by Neil tonight. We were going to be joined by Elliot too. He's running a little bit late tonight, so he may join us in a second. But for now, it's myself and Neil. Neil, how are you doing? Thanks for joining me tonight.
I'm good, mate. How are you? Great result yesterday.
Excellent.
How about you?
Excellent result yesterday, mate. Still buzzing from it. Wow, it was just...
Were you dancing by the metro last night?
No, we missed it. I went with my mum last night, and I would have loved to have seen her on this little rave that they had set up. But we were just kind of we just missed it. I think they were just kind of kicking off as we walked past. If I'd known it was going to be so vibrant as that, we may have took a little stroll up to the metro to have a little get our rave on. But yeah. It was an excellent result. It was a great day, great evening for us all. It was just everything what we've dreamed of over the past few weeks. We were hoping to continue that against Chelsea because it felt like such a big game.
Yeah,
it felt like this was the big one. If we kind of won this, to me, we would have been, up there, kind of at Christmas, but kind of cementing our place in the top four, which we already knew we were. But this kind of it makes us go 9 points ahead of Chelsea, which was huge. I felt like that was like a really big thing. I feel like they're struggling this season. They may not make it to the top four. We might. So, yeah.
Maybe. Long way to go, but
yeah.
There was a games in. We're in a good running. What have we got left? Another 23.
Yeah. Evening, Mark. Thanks for joining us tonight. Yeah, we're getting there. We are approaching the halfway mark. We're on 15 games. Obviously, it's a 38-game season. I think if we keep this form up, European football will be a given at the end of the season. They would take something drastic for a drop-off in our form for us to now not get European football. So essentially, that's a top 7 finish. Would you be disappointed if we didn't get top 7 after the start we've had? I would be. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I'd be hugely disappointed if we didn't get top 7.
Yeah,
I'd be disappointed if we didn't get top 5. To be honest with you, I'm expecting some drop off. Our squad's not going to be as impacted by the World Cup as everybody else, but I am expecting some drop off because, and actually the winter break probably has come at the right time. Wrong time for momentum, but right time because the players would have put a lot into it, and it gives us a bit of an opportunity to kind of reassess things. 4 or 5 weeks to bring some players back and to work on things, because there's only 6 that have gone, and one of them's Coyle. Is that right? So Garang isn't even with us at the moment, although he looks like a special talent.
Did you see his latest couple of goals? Well, one was a penalty, and but the second one was an amazing finish.
Yeah.
Can't wait to see him in the black and white.
Yeah, he made the penalty as well. I mean, I think it was a soft penalty, but he still put it away beautifully. And that touch and shot, that's a confident young man. But yeah, I think I would be disappointed. I think our philosophy seems to be to the media and to the fans, take it one game at a time. But actually, I think actually the players are in that mindset as well. Because when you hear the interviews, and when you hear interviews from Eddie Howe as well, he's talking about, okay, we're focusing on this game, and then we're focusing on the next game. So with Crystal Palace, he said, we're focusing on this Crystal Palace game. We'll do what we need to do in this game, and then we'll focus on that. And when they talk about the training in the week, they're talking about, that it's training is centered, it's intense. You have to participate, and also it's geared towards that final end goal of that game, nothing else. So they're working on tactics for that game. So it seems like we have a plan for everything. So we'll see how it goes. We're nearly halfway. I think we have to take advantage of squads going to the World Cup and then also participating in Europe. We could steal a march here.
Yeah, I totally agree. Well, we'll start with the team news from yesterday. When the team was announced, I'd heard before the game that it was going to be the same lineup as Aston Villa. It was close. There was one player off, Wilson was out, Wood was in. But it was great that obviously Wilson was on the bench. But it was disappointing that obviously he wasn't in the starting lineup. Just felt like, I felt during the first half, and really until Wilson came on, that we lacked that cutting edge in the box. Wilson's movement is up there with the best attackers in the Premier League in the box. The way he drags players out of position, he plays off the shoulder really quick, and he creates so many chances for not just himself but for others when he's playing this role. Wood, try as he might, doesn't do this. So kind of heart sank a little bit when I saw Wood, in the starting lineup. But Wilson was on the bench, so I thought we've still got hope. If things aren't going well, we can always bring Callum on. Luckily, we didn't really need him. We brought him on, but we were winning at the time. It just feels like that. The first half we struggled to really penetrate Chelsea. I thought our build-up play was excellent. We kept the ball pretty well. We were battling Chelsea. I thought it was a very 50-50 game in midfield. I felt Chelsea were, they held their own against us. We had to work hard. It wasn't a victory that came easy. We did dominate towards, as the game progressed, but we had to fight for it. And this was something like what we haven't done in other games. We've kind of steamrolled teams. I didn't feel like we did that yesterday. I felt like we had to really fight for this victory, which we all saw in the final 7 minutes. Let's say we'll get onto that in a bit. I've been calling that the Battle of Burn, or the Burn Brawl. We'll touch on that in a few minutes. But it was frustrating. I felt like we kind of played really well, but we just lacked that killer instinct. Obviously, in the second half, as things progressed, we got the goal, and that opened the game up. I felt Chelsea came at us after that, and obviously we had to bring Wilson on and kind of stretch the game at the other end. But it was hectic. But I felt it was very well deserved as well. We battled hard, and we saw the other side of us. Yes, we saw the slick passing and some nice attacking player, but we saw that Band of Brothers vibe again. The bodies on the line. Longstaff, Burn, Botman, slide tackles all over the shop. This is what we want to see. And ultimately, this type of grinding out results is what wins titles, cups, gets you in a Champions League position. So long may it continue. What were your thoughts on the game, Neil? We'll touch on the first half and as things improved as we went in the second half. What stood out to you?
So I completely agree with you, apart from one piece. You're completely right about Wood. He does try. He ran himself into the ground yesterday. Okay, his pressing wasn't phenomenal, and he wasn't running into the channels as much. And I'll talk about the pressing piece in a sec. But what he did do is put a lot of effort in, and he ground down a lot of their kind of back line, their back four at times.
Yeah, he did press.
Five, yeah. And it allowed to create more space for us to overload and grind them down on that right-hand side. And they were quite resilient. I have to admit, Chelsea, it was a 50-50 game. It was a game where both teams lacked cutting edge. They lacked cutting edge more so than us. But, Gallagher, Mount, Jorginho, that midfield versus Longstaff and Bruno and Willock, and I think it was quite evenly matched, although we edged it a bit. They didn't look like they were going to trouble us, apart from two shots on target. So the Gallagher shot, brilliant, but Pope had it covered. Really good hand. Got full palm.
It was a great save. Yeah,
it was a great save. But Pope read that. His position was perfect.
Yeah, you could see where it was going. Yeah.
And Brozier had that shot that was so tame. He went straight to Pope and he picked it up. But the difference is when we have the press when Callum's on is that he's the trigger for the press. So he'll put pressure on the fullbacks or the centre backs and cut off the pass between the two fullbacks. Even when you're coaching at a youth level, and the striker doesn't know what to do, you tend to say, and even if you're not asking them to press, you're saying, go straight down the middle of those two centre backs because nobody will know who to mark and who's going to mark you. So if you go straight down the middle of them, they'll probably get confused and you might get a chance on goal. Well, actually, what Callum does is he presses the fullback or he presses the two centre backs, and then one of the left hand side, either Joe or Murphy, will press that side on the left, or Willock to cut off a lot of the passing options, or on the right hand side, and then the only option then is to either pass it back to the goalkeeper. There's a mistake, and even Chelsea that did it a few times, and Mendy was sweating, and then or they hit long ball over the top, and then Botman and Byrne just head it back, right? Or we recover the ball, we turn it over, probably in that third, just past the halfway line, in the edge of the D. We usually get it around that sort of area, and then we stop passing it. But the first half was an interesting one. I thought in flashes we did really well, but we went about our job in a workmanlike fashion. We had moments of flair. We couldn't press and be intense all the time, but those triggers when they're pressed worked well. We had that 20-minute episode again that we keep talking about, where for the first 20-25 minutes, we kind of guiding ourselves into the game, and then we worked through the gears. There was the part in the middle third of the game, I think, where Chelsea did really well and had a great spell of possession. I didn't feel worried that they were gonna score though, and at halftime I just thought, right, Eddie's gonna get them in. They're gonna talk about things. He's gonna talk about our quality. The interesting thing is, again, that first half we were misplacing balls. We were making a few mistakes. But the second half was better, and I know you just asked me about the first half, but the second half was much better because we started wearing them down on that right-hand side. Miggy just retired Koulibaly, like he completely did with the afterburners. But it showed some real desire. And that moment that created the goal showed the epitome of this team. They worked together, they backed each other up. He showed more desire, wanted it more than the Chelsea backline did. He ran into space. Willock followed him up and backed him up, and took the ball off that kind of slight miscontrol, or he just kind of ran out of momentum to try and get to the ball because it was just a little bit too far ahead of Miggy, and he just smashed into the back of the net. And then the defending near the end that you mentioned, you know what it reminded me of? Do you remember when we played against Leicester under Rafa? And we were diving. We had that passenger play where everybody was diving.
30-second period. What went viral? Yeah, that was. It was backs to the wall, jumping for every header, slide tackles. Yeah, it was fantastic, man.
And there was a moment where Longstaff slid in yesterday. Got the ball, but then he broke to a Chelsea player. He came into the middle, just on the edge of the 18-yard box. Byrne takes the ball, takes the man, and it was just phenomenal. And then it had St James's Park. I mean, I wasn't there, but unfortunately, couldn't make it yesterday. But I know you were there. It felt like it had like a gladiatorial theme. It was hilarious. And then Joe raising his arms to the crowd, as in, you're not entertained.
It was. Honestly, it was. It was like a bear pit. I think the atmosphere was quite. I don't think it was. I think it took a while to get going. I feel like for the first, which it sometimes does in most games, but I feel like the first 20 minutes we were pretty quiet. But then things kind of went up a notch after a few tackles and a couple of chances. And I was in the Leazes. I usually like to sit in the Gallagher end. I find that a little bit more vocal, but I found the whole ground was vocal yesterday, very audible. Even in the Leazes, it was really loud. And just kind of the chants were kind of, echoing from one side of the ground to the other, from the Gallagher to the Leazes and Leazes, and so forth. And everyone was joining in, and just felt like a real, the cliche term bear pit. As you said, like a gladiatorial kind of arena. That's exactly what it felt like. And it really felt like as the game was progressing, people were thinking, if we win this, we're going to be 9 points clear of Chelsea. Hold on a second. Yeah, that's it. Third, and we're going to be, pushing not only for the Champions League, but it sounds ridiculous, but you can't say we're not pushing for the title when Man City are only 2 points ahead of us and they are pushing for the title. We probably won't get the title. Arsenal are bang on form. City is City.
If we got that penalty against Palace, we would have been ahead of City. I usually sit in the Leazes, and the section that I usually sit in the corner of the Leazes East, so I get a good a good kind of view of the pitch and get a view of the goals. And it's usually vocal enough there, but it had the first 15-20 minutes. It felt like, and I think it was because it was a very, very important public event. Again, remember Sunday was today, and we had our minute silence, we had the display. It felt as if it was a similar atmosphere to when the Queen passed, kind of, and we had a little bit of ceremony that was critically important, but it kind of disrupts sometimes the normal match day atmosphere and what they're doing. And so because of the import of the nature of the event, the crowd kind of feels it carries that. And it takes them a while to get into it. I mean, it was a very interesting game because I thought we changed things tactically slightly as well. So against City, we were trying to pull their fullbacks wide, and against Spurs, we kind of played trips a little bit narrower to spray the ball, and then we had and then we tried to use the width against Chelsea a lot. And then try and run into the centre backs where we knew that there was a problem. So as if it was trying to bypass that Mason Mount, Jorginho, and Gallagher midfield, because in the first half Jorginho was all over Bruno, and it was kind of just to try and play around them, and it was interesting because what I love now is how Howe changed his in-game management. Is brilliant. He tweaks the tactics as they go along, because the plan changes, and he certainly did it when we got the goal yesterday. But I'm made up for Willock as well. We're really, really happy with him.
Yeah, we'll touch on Willock in a minute. I just want to get through a few of the comments. Kenny here. What do you think of the referee's performance yesterday?
Awful, Kenny. I mean, awful. I think. I think that his performance actually needs to be looked at because he lost control of the game. Certainly within the last 4 or 5 minutes, he lost control of the game. But all the way through, I thought the first 15-20 minutes he was actually doing well. And the reason why I thought he was doing well was because he was trying to get the game to flow. But then it was at the detriment to us because Bruno gets a lot of some of them are soft free kicks. When he's actually is fouled and he has a bit of contact, he will go down and he kind of falls on the ball, and then he near enough always gets a foul. I think if anyone did any analysis, we probably had less fouls by Bruno, free kicks for Bruno getting fouled than in other matches. He completely lost control at the end with the melee. He was giving yellow cards left, right, and centre. Lascelles, I love it, but I don't think he deserved a yellow card. He could have just had a word with him. And I don't even know where we had no VAR. We had no major incidents apart from Botman when his ankle slightly, and a few other little mini niggles. In my view, it should have been 4 or 5 minutes max. No way it should have been 97 plus. I don't know what your opinion, Ben, was.
Yeah, I mean, I put a tweet out today saying I've noticed in a lot of games this season, not just with Newcastle United games, but a lot of Premier League games, there seems to be 7, 8, 9, 10 minutes of injury time added on, which back in the day, even just a few years ago, that was like unheard of. Now it's becoming the norm. Now, I've had a few people, get in touch and say it could be for head injuries, it could be for VAR. But, yes, there was a couple of injuries, injury breaks yesterday with Botman. But VAR didn't get involved. So I felt like, that's a stretch to say it was because of VAR checks and such. But so I'm not quite sure what's going on there. But it's just an observation.
Sure, I had a bit of cramp. I can't remember anyone going down with a massive head injury needed to be checked.
Yeah. It was. I thought the referee in general, like I say, was just so poor. My biggest kind of observation about his performance was he was given fouls that I didn't perceive as fouls, and much of the crowd didn't perceive as fouls. And then he, on the flip side, he wasn't given fouls that looked like blatant fouls. And I felt that went for both teams. I felt Chelsea got away with a few decisions, but I felt we got away with a few decisions as well. Yeah. It was kind of balanced out. I thought he was just really poor all round. And then obviously as we progressed to the latter stages of the game, he completely lost the plot. He shoved Pulisic, which that to me
was like, I was surprised at that.
so unprofessional, and he really wasn't being that aggressive in his face when I've watched it back. You know, he was kind of like he was having his 2 pence worth, but there was nothing really that. I mean, it wasn't a big push, but it was a push.
Still, it was a push.
I just feel like he was, to me, looked like somebody that was caught up in the the grandeur of the under the lights at St James's Park. Just seemed like a rabbit in the headlights.
Big game for Chelsea as well. They would have been what? How many points would they have been? So they would have been two, three, about 3 or 4 points behind us.
Well, if they're 9 now, they would have been 6 behind. Is that right?
Yeah, but then we wouldn't. Yeah, there would have been 6. They would have been 3. There would have been 3 points.
Yeah, true. Yeah, very true. Yeah, I wasn't taking that into account.
Yeah,
so it would have been almost like a 6-pointer for them, kind of, in the same way it was for us. Yeah, totally agree.
And the hilarious thing was, the hilarious thing is with the refereeing, it's so inconsistent, Ben. Like it's so inconsistent across all the Premier League over the weekend. If you looked. Decisions are given, some aren't. I've seen, and I don't think it was a penalty, even though it was for us. When Chalobah, he had his hand, on the ground. That's kind of allowed.
But I know what you're going to say, but you've seen them given. Yeah. So this is the thing. This is totally agree. It's the consistency. There was also the chance with Trippier and the line was pretty poor all around as well today. He got a good few decisions wrong, but his main mistake was when Trippier went through. I was
so
down
early.
I was down the leads, so couldn't see it, too well. But the flag shot up, and he was in a great crossing position. I'm not even sure if he got a chance to put the ball in or not, but it was offside in the linesman's view. But it turned out that it wasn't offside, and play should have been allowed to continue. We saw this a few seasons back. There was a great example when they kind of first brought these rules in with VAR, and it was Shelby who scored, and I can't remember who it was now, but he was put through.
God,
can you remember which game?
What was it when we got promoted?
Yeah, maybe
that season. Was it against? I think we really needed to score. Wasn't it against like Preston or something like that?
Yeah.
Or maybe I'm wrong.
I can't remember who it was or if it was in the cup or the league, but Shelby was put through. I think Carroll played a part. There was like a header. Shelby ran on. And the linesman flag went up, but the referee played on. I think this is how it worked out. I'm not sure. I'm not even sure if the flag went up, but he kind of offside.
It was against Sheffield.
Yes, Sheffield. Yes, that was it.
Yeah.
Kenny's
I remember
it was against Sheffield.
It was against Sheffield United. I remember because I was at a work event, and it was the first prime. It was the first prime game. I think we'd gone to like a George Michael tribute band that we had to do with this work thing, and I was watching it in my pocket up on my coat in front of me, and I had Prime football, and I had it in there, and I was watching it through the concert. So I remember it, and we were actually in Sheffield at the time.
Yeah, this was it, and it's hazy now, but I don't think the referee blew, obviously, because that would have stopped play. But kind of like we just played on. I think the flag went up, and he scored, and then there was a lot of controversy, but ultimately Sheffield stopped playing, and it was given. So you never know in these situations. I think the linesman has to be very careful. In this day and age, if you're going to pop that flag up, when you're wrong, and then the referee kind of backs you up with the whistle, it's not a good look. This is kind of not what we want to see in the game. So I felt like his overall performance was abysmal. It was quite funny actually because I opened Twitter this morning, and just after I'd put my tweet out about the referee, I read from a follower, someone I follow back, that he thought the ref was pretty good, and I kind of messaged him saying
really?
I said I've just tweeted the opposite of you. I can't believe, it's all about opinions. We're all allowed opinions, but I think my opinion was kind of vindicated in the replies. There was a lot of people. Just as I'm sure there's a lot of watchers tonight that agree that the ref was just so bad, and the linesman, and we were lucky to get out of that, not performance wise with the win, but with their bad decisions, it could have gone very much against us. Luckily that wasn't the case.
I mean, they look woeful this season, Chelsea. They do not.
Yeah.
The excuse from Potter carried carried no weight whatsoever, in my opinion, where he was talking about the fact that they've got congested fixture list by playing in Europe. We played 3 games within a week, hadn't we? So that's ridiculous. Because we played on the Sunday, then we played on Saturday, then we played on the Wednesday, and then we played on the Saturday again. So we played a lot of games last week. It doesn't hold no weight whatsoever, but they seem like they're in a bad way. I'm waiting for the inevitable drop off from us.
Yeah,
And
so
I don't know where and it might be because I'm pre-programmed from Ashley days.
Yeah.
Or even before Ashley, we shot ourselves in the foot sometimes. But this team, I don't want to say it has a feeling of Leicester, but it kind of feels a little bit like Leicester,
Neil,
where
it's
we've got
getting that
band of
way.
brothers.
Yeah.
They're all fighting for each other. When
Yeah.
yesterday was hilarious. Burn remembers what happened with Kai Havertz.
Yeah.
Havertz then tries to give something, and then Joe Linton comes in, who's just smashing half the team anyway. And then Murphy runs in. If he could
Cher
run
was
that
just
fast towards
laughing.
the ball,
Cher's just there laughing.
Cher's just laughing. Yeah, if Murphy
Yeah.
could move that fast towards the ball as he did to try and back up his players, it'd be amazing. Yeah, and then the
Yeah.
only one who didn't get involved was Bruno. I think.
Yeah. It was crazy. We'll move on to that final 7 minutes in a couple of minutes. But just while it's fresh in my mind, Alex Hurst, who I met yesterday, I was sorting his friend a ticket out, Simon from True Faith. So had a little catch up with them pre-match. But Alex Hurst tweeted after the game that he's still waiting for our weakness to be found out. This team does not appear to have a very kind of there's no kind of anything that stands out in a negative manner about this team. It can defend. We're solid as a rock. We've still got the best defense in the league. With that clean sheet yesterday, Pope has now got 7 clean sheets. He's now top of the clean sheets league, right?
Amazing.
So the defensive base is solid. We've established this. We can't be penetrated, right? That's a given now.
But the midfield is great and dynamic.
Yes, the midfield.
The only thing I'd love, and I love Joe as well, but the only thing I'd love is for Joe Linton and Willock and Sean Longstaff to fight it out for another number 8 position. Because Bruno, bringing Kone, Mourinho, Sangar, one of those. There's plenty of people out there. I think Sanjay did a thread on it today. I haven't had a chance to read it though. But I'd prefer one of those. So I'd prefer. I'm not too hot on Alvarez. I haven't seen a lot of him. That's why. But I have seen Kone. I have seen Sangar. I have seen Marino. So I'd be happy with one of those as a number 6, and then release Bruno. Maybe there's some. I think our weakness is our squad depth.
Yeah,
our weakness is our squad depth. At the moment, we've got through it, but our weakness will be our squad depth, bringing quality on to change a game. If we're bringing people on, at the moment, we're bringing people on when we're winning.
Yeah.
Most of the time, when we bring a substitution on, we're in a winning position. We have been over the last 5-6 games. When we struggled, I don't know if you remember, we struggled a lot when Bruno wasn't playing. So maybe having a backup to Bruno when Ashalvi's back, you could say he's that. That would be a weakness of ours. And then I also think that that if we really need to make a change to have an impact on a game, we're 1-0 down and we need to score. That's where we're probably a bit weaker at the moment because we haven't got Isaac. I don't think you'll get a goal off Wood, even though he played quite well. Over the last couple of games when he's come on and deputised, he's done well, but he's not going to be a goal machine. And I think if you look at that bench, it is massively weak. There is 4 or 5 players that actually shouldn't be there, but they're doing a great job.
Yeah, I think I'm very concerned about Trippier's backup. Now the Kraft injured. I wasn't before the Kraft injury, but he looks like he's still going to be out for the majority of this season. Manquillo played the other week and the other night, and I
wasn't impressed, to be honest with you.
All at sea. I know he's been injured a lot recently, and he had a good little spell a few years ago. Under Rafa, he had a little kind of rejuvenation type of thing, but he's nowhere near the level of Trippier, and we need somebody. And this is why we've been linked with Ashby, obviously a good young player. That's probably the route we're going to have to go down, because Trippier is going to play every week until he probably retires. Let's be honest. You're never going to bench Trippier until his legs go.
But I think he's got two. I think he's got 2 years. But you know what? With Trips, I think he's got a little bit of the Ryan Giggs about him. As in, do you remember when Ryan Giggs? He was that devastating winger, and then as he got older, he became more of a playmaker.
Central, he went more central.
And you actually never saw. And I don't think he can play as a centre back, but if we needed him to tuck in on the right hand side of the midfield and play some balls if we needed to, he might be able to do a job there.
A few of us have talked about this with Trippier, that he looks like he's kind of, I don't want to say a late bloomer, because he did well throughout his career, but he certainly seems to be improving with age.
Yeah.
He's
12 million's a bargain. If you think about it, Ben, 12 million's because he's a 25, 26 million pound player right now.
Yeah, he is. But I feel like we'll just touch on this from Islam. A couple of solid attacking signings in January, and he will really start believing. I think we all will, Islam. My choices for January, I'm still saying Maddison. I've been super impressed with him. I know it's a little bit kind of mainstream to have this kind of, I want Maddison, but I do. I feel like
I do want Maddison. His goal was just filthy.
He's really coming into his own this season. But he had a little bit of a disrupted season last season, kind of like for the first half anyway. But he had a good second half. This season, he started with a bang. He would fit into this team, and people, I always hear the discussion that, well, where would you play him and who would you drop? Listen, that's not for us to worry about. That's
to worry about.
That's for Eddie to sort out. We just want the best players in, and what every excellent team needs, if you're going for titles and Champions League positioning, is squad depth.
Yeah, we've seen it with competing for those places.
Yeah, people don't say this about City. They've signed loads of players over the years that they don't need. I think even Calvin Phillips was a great example. They didn't need to sign him, but it was someone who added squad depth. Gave Rodri a bit of competition. This is how you build a squad, basically. And Maddison will be a key point in that. And some people say, well, he plays on the right, or he can play on the right where Almiron's playing. So what? Even if it's just an option from the bench, this is how you build a squad.
But we've got to evolve, Ben. We've got to evolve. And eventually people will figure out Eddie's working on what's next. And the faith that I have in Eddie at the moment is, again, I mention it every week. Ethan was watching the match with me yesterday. He sat down to my left, and we played it out from the back so calmly and worked it all the way up onto the right-hand flank for an attacking opportunity. And we both looked at each other. We were laughing. The goal, we thought it was Bruno for the pass. I actually thought it was Bruno for that pass.
I tweeted that it was Bruno.
it was a great improvised lob by. And I think it was we played it from the back. We played it into midfield, passed it to Trips. Trips passed it into to Miggy. Miggy did that cheeky outside the foot cross, right? Yeah. And we were laughing at each other. And I said, remember when we watched that pre-season friendly in Austria? And I turned around and said, I really don't think this team of players can play this way. I don't think they can play it out for the back. I think we should just go back to a counter-attacking football. Shows what I know. But Eddie has a plan, and he will have a plan for the next phase. And it might be actually bringing in players like Maddison and someone else helps us change our formation, the way we set up slightly differently, gives us a plan B, and I'm all for that. I've said it a few times. Play to the whistle, Kenny. You're 100% right. You always told that. So I told you I've been silent on this group on Facebook for years called Tea with Busquets, and it's full of Man United, Arsenal, City, Liverpool, Spurs fans, and I've been the sole. There's about 50 of us in the group. I've been the sole Newcastle fan, just sitting there talking, not really saying a huge amount because there's not a lot to brag about. They are rattled. If that is a litmus test of what the populace of the so-called top six are like, they're rattled. Newcastle, what I was reading over the weekend, Newcastle are a problem. They're under the radar. So then I'm commenting and saying, well, we're hardly under the radar. Everybody knows about a high press and overload on the right-hand side. If you didn't know, you would know. and then they're saying, January transfer window's coming up. They're going to be lethal, and I've been winding them up today, saying I don't think we're really going to be spending a huge amount of money. I think we're only going to be buying Madison, Diaby, and Alvarez or Kone, at number 6. We're probably not going to buy a lot. Oh, yeah, maybe a few wonder kids from Brazil, and then maybe we'll get a right defender as well. But we won't spend more than 150 million. We'll be right. Just winding them up. But
that's what you've got to do, man. We've lived in the shadows for 14 years, and it's time for us to have our time now, I think. Just want to touch on Willock. Obviously, he scored the goal. I thought he was excellent yesterday.
Very good. Very good.
He's really coming into his own this season. He started the season, fairly quietly, but picked up performance-wise after a few games, cemented his place in the starting lineup, much like Longstaff has. The Shelvey injury was kind of a blessing in disguise because it's given these two young players, Longstaff and Willock, who are very different type of players. And, they've both been criticised slightly by the fan base for various reasons. Willock for not scoring, as many goals as we probably think he should. And Longstaff for, dwelling on the ball and kind of getting caught in possession. Both have drastically improved that over the course of this winning run, this unbeaten 10-match run. But I just felt like Willock's energy yesterday was crazy. I love it when he kind of breaks down the left.
His ball carrying ability is amazing. In a tight spot, he seems to he's very graceful with the ball, isn't he? He's athletic, but he's quite graceful.
He has a nice stride to him, good close control.
His acceleration is amazing when down the left-hand side. Really, really good. And I think he's got the best knee sliding game in the world.
I think he's based that on Thierry Henry.
It
just looks very Thierry Henry-esque. And with the Arsenal link, I'm thinking, did he grow up watching a lot of...
he probably did. He probably had a training session with Henry.
Yeah, it certainly looks like that.
But he's worked... It's a really good point you made about him and Longstaff, actually. Two different players, both playing that number 8 position as a pivot. Two different types of players. Willock will carry the ball a lot. So he'll carry the ball. His passing's good, but it's okay. But it's not amazing, and sometimes he will give the ball away. But he's great on recoveries. He's great on turnovers. He'll chase the ball back, and he'll be able to kind of receive the ball in a tight spot and then work up that flank, or in the midfield. Sean is different. But, we always said that he should be a number 10, but he's pressing the ball up high, getting a lot of interceptions, a lot of turnovers. He's passing the ball, and his passing range has improved dramatically. And he's got a little bit of Bruno in him and a little bit of Shelvey in him. But, he will try a longer pass. He tends to like to do that diagonal pass to Miggy or either on the ground or kind of over a defender's head or fullback's head. But, and he's getting back and putting tackles in, vital tackles.
Yeah. The thing, I just want to touch on Longstaff. I've always kind of berated him for a lack of pace, which it's never going to come now.
He's all right, actually.
Yeah, well, the thing is, he's still not that quick. But how he's now making up for this is the energy. So although he might not have this blistering pace, he makes up for it with the constant movement via his kind of energy that he's got in the tank. And I think that makes up for it. It would be different if he wasn't pacey, but he was not moving. But he is moving, and he's constantly moving. And that's kind of what his game has become. It's kind of pressing, movement throughout the pitch. And he's got a lot of good technical ability when he's on the ball. You say, he's got a bit of Bruno about him, the passing range, and he's pressing he can press as well as Joe Linton does. So that's got a lot of good things going for him. It's just if he gets exploited for that lack of pace, sometimes that can be an issue, especially if he's caught in possession. But that has decreased in the past few weeks. So I've always been looking out for that. Something I really it's his biggest weakness for me, getting caught, dwelling on the ball. But he hasn't done it a lot in the last few weeks.
I love just for someone with more nous than me to do a thread on this, probably with a little bit more time. But what I've noticed watching him over the last 4 or 5 games is, and I think Eddie's been working, the coaching team are working with him on this as well. He's better because he's screening a lot better. he's anticipating a lot better. And the reason why he's anticipating a lot better is if you look at his head movement on the pitch, he's actually scanning a lot more.
Yeah.
So people always used to say that Frank Lampard and Steven Gerrard were fantastic midfielders, which they were. And Lampard scanned more of the pitch of that middle third than anybody else around him. So, your average midfielder would kind of look once or twice. He'd look 4 or 5 times constantly before he even received the ball. He'd know what to do because Frank didn't have the best, turn of speed or pace.
Yeah, very similar. Yeah, to Longstaff. That kind of the speed wise, definitely. I totally get that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think he's got a long way to go, but he's improved. But I've kind of diverted from your point about Willock, but I think Willock, based on his form of the last 4 or 5 games, if you compare Willock to Gallagher, you'd be scratching your head as to why one's going to Qatar and the other isn't.
Yeah, that is a very good point, Neil. Yeah, totally agree. Just want to touch on Islam's comment here saying love Murphy's love for the Toon might not be good enough, but he bleeds black and white. Yeah, Murphy was great yesterday. I love these little role in the Battle of Bern when he came on and he was shoving it was a Cucurella or someone, I can't remember exactly now.
Yeah.
And I thought Bern was quite aggressive with Cucurella as well, because they two, I'm guessing they were ex-teammates at Brighton. I don't think unless he was signed after, but I think Byrne was there when he was there.
I think he was there for 1 season because I think he was in at Brighton for 2 seasons before he went to Chelsea.
So that was weird. There was definitely no love lost there, but I mean, we'll use this comment to come onto the Battle of Bern, but I thought that was a crazy end to the game. That 7 minutes was utterly unbelievable. Everybody was out of the seats in the crowd. Everybody was out of the seats on the bench. We'll touch on Lascelles, how he played his little role. I didn't actually realize what he was doing until afterwards this morning. I was lost in the the kind of chaos. I knew he was kind of getting very tight to Cucurella as he tried to take this throw, but I didn't realize that what he was doing was stopping. Was stopping him.
He took his wallet.
Yeah, he was stopping him from moving down the line to get closer, down towards our box.
He was. It was very cute.
Yeah,
we are a nasty side to play against.
That was something. That was something I've never seen before, really, in the Premier League. I've never seen, a captain kind of pretend to warm up. I mean, is he warming up in the 97th minute? It's that alone was very kind of dubious as to why he was down that end. He was almost acting like a cheerleader, wasn't he? But he got so tight to Cucurella, and I think at first the ref was just going to let it go, but he just would not move. Lascelles
wouldn't move. He wouldn't move. He should have had a word with him.
He was checking his feet. He was looking at his feet. He was like toe to toe. He was shoulder to shoulder. Cucurella couldn't even get his arms up to throw the ball.
But his point was because the camera was right on him. And the sales point that he was making was, I'm standing here warming up. You're moving up the line, so you're actually encroaching on my space. Not the other way around.
Yeah, very true.
My main takeaway, I'm just reading Islam's comment here. The main takeaway of this week. We are. I mean, we
are no longer
last week. It's a team. It's not one person anymore. And whilst we love that star to shine, everybody knows their role. Everybody knows if the backups know their role as well. They know what position they have to play, when they have to press, what the triggers are, all of it. Some of them can do it a bit more effectively than the others, but we're not dependent on one person anymore. I'm surprised that ASM didn't come on, because actually I think he probably could have done something against that Chelsea side.
Well, that's interesting, Neil, because the guy I was sitting next to in the Leasers, I said to him the very same thing. I think we brought Murphy on instead, but I felt we could have done with his kind of pace and skill on the counter-attack. And I know Murphy has pace too, but ASM's got that little bit more skillfulness about him. And he's
laying the ball off as well. I think he must have 2 or 3 assists by it's weird for him because he's not actually he's not dribbling defenders as much anymore, but he's laying the ball off in attacking positions quite well.
I miss the kind of, I mean, it's not a criticism. And we play completely differently now, but I miss the old ASM from the shining light under Bruce's dark, era.
We just take everyone on.
Hug that left touch line.
Yeah. And has he lost a bit of pace from his injury though? Maybe they're trying to protect him.
Possibly. Something I've noticed is he doesn't look as lean. ASM has bulked up
It
physically
does
a
look
lot more
yeah.
than he did when he's, you know, it looks a bit bigger physical specimen than he did when he signed for us. Looked
I
at
hope he
he's,
doesn't turn out like Traore then.
yeah, I don't think he'll go that far. But I remember like there was a game against Southampton years ago when we first signed him, and he was hugging that left touchline, and there was the famous clip where he kind of, you know, he's like,
intercepts the ball.
yeah, and he kind of like nutmegged somebody and like shot down the left hand channel and drove in, and I missed that kind of ASM.
Yeah,
I've noticed
he got 2 assists that game, I think.
Yeah, and a lot of his play now seems to come. He gets the ball on left, but cuts in. He's very much an inverted winger.
Yeah.
Whereas
I think he wants to play as a number 10, though. That's why when we're allowing him to have a free role.
Yeah, I just my opinion, but I really enjoyed him when he used to hug that touchline. You know, on the left or on the right. You know, mainly on the left, and he would kind of go down, you know, as far as he could go to the corner flag, and then kind of take his man on and weave his way in. Now he very much cuts across diagonally, you know, and kind of brings other people into play. His game's adapted, and maybe he's had to do that under Howe.
Yeah.
But I do miss. There's a part of me that misses the old ASM. But I guess the future will show us how, you know, if he's going to be a part of this team or not. I'm personally doubtful.
Yeah, I think he'll eventually go. I think he'll have the rest of this season, maybe one more season, and then he'll probably go. You know what, though? What I will say is, Ben, is that how depending on his work ethic, because it's work ethic and intensity first, depending on his work ethic and his intensity and his ability to follow the plan, Howe will find a role for him, because he proved yesterday, because it was actually one of the tactics that was the undoing of Chelsea, allowing Joe Linton to play that free role.
Yes, he wasn't
because he found space in between those lines. So actually, Joe Linton was playing on the left hand side, wasn't he?
Yeah,
where ASM is. So it doesn't mean that ASM couldn't have that free role, and maybe actually he's setting the team up with a tactical plan that sometimes that left hand side will have a free role. Sometimes it's Miggy who has that free role on the right hand side. Sometimes it might be both of them switching. I mean, can you imagine that being how lethal that would be? Yeah. I actually love Miggy, but I think, you know, you could possibly have Isaac and ASM on the left and the right.
Well, as you were talking there, that's what was going through my mind. That was going to be my next point, and we still haven't seen this, as far as I'm aware. We still haven't seen it yet, because they've obviously all had their injury issues this season. But if we could, you know, have the front three of Wilson, ASM, and Isak, and if it was effective, you know, at the minute, how we playing with Miggy and Joe Linton and Wilson, it's very effective for this high press. So ASM and Isak would have to put the same amount of energy in for this to work. But the quality there, man, wow, that would be amazing. You know, that's like Champions League front line, let's be honest, isn't it? That could cause issues against any defence in Europe on a Champions League night.
I think we need to prepare for Callum not being around for a bit. And the reason why I say he's playing a lot of games, he's going to the World Cup, and I think around February time he might have another spell out, because he tends to have 2 a season. And in that case, it may be a ASM left, Isaac up front in the middle, and Miggy on the right. That could happen. I think in those cases, though, he might prefer a Joe Linton on the left, because I want to keep it a little bit tighter. Although Isaac does love to press. Isaac does press.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm excited to see him. I'm excited to see what he can do, especially with Nunes scoring now. As what our young strikers start doing things. Yeah, season or 2, I think he'll be gone. I think he will, and I think unfortunately, he's got to realise that Howe will make him a better player, and if he wants to reach the heights that he can, I can see another Ben Arthur situation with ASM.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, he's still got time to turn it around, but he must be 25, coming up 26 now. And, you know, there comes a time in every player's career when you have to, like, realise the potential. So you either start doing, you know, as you've talked the talk, now it's time to walk the walk. Yeah. If he can do that, arguably, if he'd been fit this season, he may have gone to the World Cup with France. That could have been a bit of a push, because I think even Diaby's been left out, hasn't he?
Yeah, I
think Diaby was left out of the squad. I'm sure I read that the other day. I may be wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong. But I feel like he could have maybe pushed, you know, for his first call up if he'd started the season well. But he got so many injuries early doors. I don't want to give up hope on him, because he's a very, very special talent, and he's a good bloke. He's done a lot.
He's a great bloke
for the community. He's done a lot for local children. He's done great things with his card game and inviting
and
people.
he's brilliant. I really want him to do well, and I love him to do it here. I really would. I think Diaby didn't make the squad.
Yeah, so it probably would have been tough if a player like Diaby's been left out. But the point I'm trying to make is, if he had been fit and playing, he could have been part of the conversation. But yeah,
I mean,
so
as wide players for France, you've got Dembele, who can play wide, but then quite a few of them.
I think he would have.
Would a little bit. Camavinga maybe.
I think he could have. If he'd been fit and firing, but it is a good one.
That squad's a good squad. It is an amazing squad.
Yeah, I looked at it the other day. I was like, yeah, that's still got a chance.
Senegal. I think France, Brazil, even Argentina have got a really good squad.
Yeah, I wasn't aware of the Senegal squad. I'll have to take a look at that. You think they've got a chance?
I think there could be a dark
horse. Progress anyway. Maybe not win it, but yeah. This is a good one from Islam. Miggy hasn't scored for 2 games. Outrageous, really.
I know. I should dump him. Get rid of him.
It's definitely tongue in cheek from Islam, but it brings me on to a serious point. Miggy, if he wants to keep his place in this squad, in this team, he'll always be in the squad as far as I'm concerned. But in this team, he's going to have to keep this form up, and that is now the tricky bit. We've seen what he can do over relatively short period. I mean, say short, progressing on for over a third of a season that he's been fit and firing, and pre-season. So all of 2022 so far has been brilliant, but he's going to need to keep this going, because we're going to be bringing some talent into this team, and if he wants to keep that spot his own, he's going to have to keep up this kind of form. It's no use just going back to the old Miggy. We've seen what he can do. He needs to keep doing it. He doesn't have to score every week. I mean, he assisted yesterday, and he probably was going to get the shot off before Willock kind of came in. So he may have scored yesterday. Then he was unlucky not to score midweek.
I think the ball was running away from him a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I like to big him up.
I love Miggy. I love Miggy. And the post from his missus with his little lad.
That was sweet. Cute. Yeah. He's a great guy. And
the thing is, what's Diaby's form been like? Would you have Diaby in January?
To be honest, Neil, I don't really follow much football outside the Premier League, so I haven't really seen much of him this season. But I know he's a good talent. I know he's an excellent talent.
Great talent. I mean, he's not doing as well. I'm pretty sure he's not doing as well this season as he did last season. Although actually, 15 matches, 6 goals, 3 assists, about the same as Miggy.
Yeah, Luke's saying he prefer the French winger from Bayern. I guess he means Leverkusen, and then hence Diaby. I'm guessing that's
Diaby.
Unless there's someone else I'm kind of not thinking of.
I mean, I would. There's 2 players I'd love for us to go shopping in Germany.
Yeah.
In January, and I'd love us to pick up Kone and Diaby.
Yeah, Kone looks a real talent, kind of all action, box to box type.
Yeah,
he can do a bit of everything from what I've seen.
I think he'll add something completely different to our midfield. So and Howe likes those types of hard-working, able to press, able to work the ball in tight spots, kind of technical, athletic players.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an interesting one. Would I have Tielemans? I don't know if I'd have Tielemans this year.
Leicester picking up form again. Tielemans has been improving in recent weeks. I do like the look of him. I think he's got that all-star quality. I like Tielemans.
I do like Tielemans, but I think I'd like to see where Longstaff goes now.
Yeah. This brings me on as well to Barnes, who Islam's mentioned there. I've liked Barnes for a long time now. I can't see us ever going to Leicester and saying, we'll take Maddison, we'll also take Barnes. Tielemans is a bit different because he still hasn't signed that contract, so he could be a free.
Nor is Maddison, has he?
Yeah, true. Maddison's is ticking down, but he's got another year. But I think Tielemans is free next summer, isn't he? If I'm right.
And maybe we'll pick him up on a free. Maybe we will.
I mean,
in January we can speak to him, can't we, on a pre-contract?
Yeah, very true. But
they have go-betweens. So a go-between's probably said, run your contract down. We'll have you next year.
Yeah, of course, yeah. I totally agree. But Barnes, to me, has been a player over the past few years. He's got a very unique running style, very powerful. I could see him in some kind of wide spot. He's not your orthodox winger, Barnes, although he does play wide. I feel like he's a bit more, he's bulkier. He's kind of got, a bit of like kind of physical presence to him.
Yeah,
He's not,
little powerhouse, isn't he?
Yeah, he is a little powerhouse. He's I don't know, it's something about him. I've always liked Barnes, and he would be a player. But if there was a choice between one or the other, it would always be Maddison. I think Maddison's got that agility, and he's kind of a couple of years ahead in his kind of progression through his career. But Maddison's the type of player that comes in, and you don't have to, wouldn't have to get him up to speed.
Yeah.
You could just plop him in there, and he'd continue scoring and assisting.
But with everything, he'll score, he'll assist, he'll be happy with the press. Maddison, his work rate, he's kind of professionalism, because you can see what it meant to him to be in the England squad. He just wanted to keep working hard.
Yeah.
And he's got that little bit of nastiness about him that fits in with the way the team is now. We are absolute buggers to play against, and I think he'd love it. He would love it.
Yeah, and he's got good intelligence about him. Well, I'm sure you've seen a lot of his post-match interviews, and you can see he
talks well.
Yeah, he talks well, and he is a bit of a. I can imagine him being a bit of a leader, but like in a different way. He's got that kind of, that intelligence. Anybody that's got that kind of intelligence on the field and off the field will always be respected, I feel. So but this is a good one as well. Obviously, Tielemans and Maddison next. But,
maybe.
Sorry, this was the one I was referring to. Trossard again. Trossard is another brilliant player that I've been shouting from the rooftops about for a few years.
Does he fit in with our system and with our team, though?
I don't know. I'm not. I think Howe can make anybody fit if he really wants to make it work. But I just like Trossard because he's kind of like at that peak, kind of age now where he's going to get one last move. I mean, he's not a youngster. I think is he 28? I think he might even be 28.
I think he is, and that's why he's a late bloomer, though.
He is, he is. But he's somebody again like Maddison, somebody that you can chuck him straight in, and he's been in the Premier League, he's done it, and he's not going to take that time to get up to speed. Would you take Trossard, Neil?
Would I take Trossard? I like him. I really do like him. I think he's 20. He's 27.
27.
So
he's still got a few years left.
He's still got a good few years. I do like him. I do like his directness. I do like his goal contributions, his assists and his goals. His work rate and his work ethic is brilliant. I don't know. He doesn't, and it just might be just being stupid, but he doesn't feel like he'd be. I don't know.
I just think as well with the Ashworth,
because he plays a lot on the left-hand side, and I think we've got a lot on that left-hand side. Yeah,
I mean, you might be right, but I do feel it's going to be some tough decisions made in the next few months and years to come. Howe's going to have to be pretty ruthless.
I mean, who's on that list in January? If we wanted to bring in 3 players, we wanted to bring a number 6 in, we wanted to bring a right winger in, and then that Maddison type number 10 midfielder position.
Maybe some right back cover as well. That would
right back. So that's 4 players that we need to get.
I think about 4.
So then who would go?
Well, I think we have true.
Richie,
always remember, yes, these were the 2 that I was going to say. The 2 that's kind of been in the squad but not played. Let's be honest, Richie and Dummett have been a waste of 2 squad places this year, and that is something that you cannot afford in the Premier League. Every squad place has to count. Also been it'd be interesting to see if Carrier stays on, because obviously we can't have 4 keepers.
Yeah, is Carrier only till January or?
I think it was. I don't actually. It wasn't announced as such. It was just a kind of on a short-term deal, which I think people assumed was to January, and it probably is.
I don't think Dubs comes back either, because he's saying he loves life. He loves life at Man United. I'm not even going to get into it anymore with that guy.
He's made 1 appearance so far, and that was during the week, wasn't it?
Trossard's not worth it. Is that how much Trossard's going for, Luke? 85 million.
Jesus, I wouldn't pay that much for it. Not at that age, late 20s.
I think that after I think the thing is, Ashworth's philosophy is who's the next Trossard. These young players that they're looking for.
I'm very excited about Garang Kuol. I think
that guy. I'm getting hyped by him.
There's something very special about him, and he looks so mature in his interviews for someone who's 18.
Did you watch that A-League commentary?
No,
There
don't
was
think
like
so.
a 20-minute A-League stars.
Oh no, I didn't see that.
I'll send you the link to it.
Yeah, send me.
It
He looks
basically
special.
it covers when he made his when he made his debut for Australia and like getting called up, and then he just signed for Newcastle, so it
Yeah.
showed that, and it showed him getting called up for Australia, and it was really interesting. He met the manager in a cafe. He was drinking tea. It was just hilarious. But yeah, he seems like a very mature kid.
Yeah,
You know, the fact that he's had 4 goal contributions in 2 games. I know it's the A League. I know it's the A League, but still, he's come on and he's had to win the game. His team have been 2-0 down. The first game last week, he came on and he had 2 assists. This week, he scored himself twice to get them back in the game. That's a lot of pressure and responsibility for a 20-year-old, no matter what league you're in.
yeah.
He's coming on as a sub and he's carrying that team. He's not even starting.
He's become the star man in that team, which for someone who's 18, it tells you a lot about the man.
Oh yeah, he's 18. I thought I said he was 20, didn't I?
Yeah.
He's 18, very young lad. I'd like to see him train with the first team.
Yeah.
I think he's going out on loan to a European club.
Yeah. I guess time will tell. But yeah, this is good. I'm not sure about Danilo. I don't really know him as such. I'm not sure which Danilo that is. But Bellingham, yeah, 100%. Definitely take him. Could we get Jude Bellingham? I'm not sure.
But he's going to Liverpool all day.
Yeah, it's been talked up a lot, but that's a great suggestion, Gary. I mean, Bellingham is the future. If Southgate doesn't utilise him in the World Cup, then more fool him, because he's a special player. He's done it on the highest stage in the Champions League.
I don't know many Danilos apart from the right back, but he's probably the same age as Trips, isn't he?
He's one from Lawrence. Evening, guys. Just get me voice back from last night. What a time to be alive. Quick question. Is top 4 achievable realistically? I think we can 100% do it. Now, we're getting towards the end of the show, guys, and this was a question I was going to save for Neil, to get his opinion on it. I know my opinion on it. We'll touch on that in a minute, but yeah, Neil, what do you think? Do you think top 4 is realistically achievable?
Well,
considering where we are now.
About 5-6 weeks ago, we had this same conversation with Elliot and with Joe and yourself, and I was cast on, in stone that we were going to be in 7th position come the end of the season. Now I think it actually is achievable, but there's a few elements that have to. So we have to stay ahead of the game tactically, because people are going to have 5-6 weeks to analyze us. And if the fans are looking at Newcastle and saying Newcastle are a problem, the managers certainly are. They're going to figure out a way to try and break us down. They might not be able to handle our intensity, but they're going to try and figure out a way to break us down. So we have to make sure that we're tactically evolving. We have to maintain the momentum after the World Cup break. So we have to really use this pre-season. The good news is we always play better in the second half of the season. That's instilled in the DNA of this club. We always play better in the second half of the season.
Yeah.
And the run that we went on after we had that team bonding session in Saudi Arabia last year, was it Dubai or Saudi Arabia? I can't remember.
Yes, it was Saudi.
It was in Saudi. Was amazing. So I think that will have a lot. And I think it's how we don't want to have a Tino situation. And what I mean by that is we've got Isaac, we've got ASM. How do you introduce them into the team without ruining that team dynamic that we've got now? As well as any new additions in January, we have to invest. If we stay injury free in key positions like Trips and Bruno, and we strengthen in January, definitely think we can get top 4. In fact, I'd love it.
Yeah. I'm very much of the same opinion. A few weeks back, I was so nervous that we hadn't done enough in the transfer window to really, launch an assault on the top 8. That was my personal aim for this season. Maybe like a top 8. Hopefully get into like a top, maybe a 7. To top 7. But I feel like Sorry, my son's just started crying.
That's all right.
Just threw me off. Yeah, I feel like we could still get a top 7 finish, but now you've got to reassess now to get so far through. This season, like we're 15 games in, and we're obviously, it's not quite halfway, but we're getting towards halfway. And you look at the form over 2022, it has us like 5th or something like that. I mean, you're thinking like there has to be, like I touched on at the start of the season, there has to be something gone very drastically wrong if we don't finish in the European places. So I think it's not a given. Nothing's a given in the Premier League, but I do feel like anything less than a top 7 finish would for me personally, it would be disaster considering how well we've played in 2022. But the key question is Champions League. Yeah, we're up there.
It is realistic.
You can't discredit it. If in a few months go by in February, March, we're like 6th or 7th, then maybe we'll stop mentioning it. But as things stand, you can't rule out Champions League when you're sitting 3rd in the league, when you're sitting down to have your Christmas dinner. If your team's 3rd in the league at Christmas time, regardless if there's been a few less games,
mentally, mentally it'll have an effect. I think we've Leeds are an interesting team because they've done quite well. We've got Leeds to play, and then the litmus test is Arsenal, January the 3rd. Depends on what happens then. Arsenal the only team I fear in the Premier League. I really do fear. I think he'll keep hold of Luke. I think he'll keep hold of Wood at least till the end of the season.
Sorry, just to touch on Luke there. Didn't mean to skip past it there. Dummett. I think he'll go. Richie, I think he'll go. Maybe I've heard this is a little bit of info that I can't remember who told me. Was it you? Somebody told me that Richie and Dummett would not be in the squad past. January.
I've heard that.
Yeah.
I've heard Dummett, Richie, Gillespie won't be in the squad because Darlow will be back. They're going to keep Karius on. I think Darlow will be back. I think Gillespie will go as well. But then there's still another player that they need to get rid of.
Yeah, the thing, just to touch on Islam's point here, there is there's an extension clause in his contract, Islam, which means Brighton can extend it. So I feel like they probably would extend it.
And they're not easy sellers, are they? They're not now.
Yeah, no, that's it. But it's
was Dan Ashworth there when we got burned?
Was he on gardening leave by that point?
He was on gardening leave at that point.
Yeah, I'm not sure, man. But
I mean, it's we definitely have to invest. We have to manage that squad. The test is against Arsenal and what we're going to do. The good news is we've got to face the top 6 again. We've got to face Arsenal twice, but between now and the end of the season, 4 of those top 6 games are at home. Is that right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
So we've got Liverpool, we've got City, we've got Man United, we've got Arsenal all at home. We got to go to the Emirates. We've got to go to Stamford Bridge. That'll be interesting. But we do win at Stamford Bridge, and they're toxic sometimes. And we got Tottenham at home as well. Yeah, so we've got quite a few of those top, and we don't lose at home.
No, it's become a fortress. We've often heard that St James's Park is a fortress, and I'll be honest with you, that was a myth under Ashley. For 14 years, it wasn't a fortress. I can remember many a match going and coming home after a defeat. It most certainly was not a fortress.
Yeah, it was a farce.
In the media, they still seem to think that it has been a fortress even under the Ashley era. It really hasn't. Many teams turned up and just turned us over.
It was toxic. It was toxic.
Yeah, it was toxic, Neil. Yeah. It was toxic.
And these teams. I mean, it's interesting. I think mentally we might have the edge. I think this team have got real mental fortitude. They're working for each other, and they've got a real bunker mentality. I think you said it a few weeks ago. It's us against them.
It is.
And you could see it. You know, Joe mentions it all the time. Elliot mentions it all the time. You know, did you see the gift that Nick Pope gave to Matteo for the World Cup? I mean,
publicly, you know, this is publicly shared as well. In eras gone by or teams gone by, that gift might have not been shared on social media. I mean, straight away, Bruno was happy to share that with the world. The Pope would give him a lovely, book for Matteo, keep his father's World Cup memories, and that's shared amongst the fans, and you can feel the love from them, and then we
they're a
pile on more.
solid unit. You
Yeah,
will see. Ask me again in February where we are.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah, man. Well, we'll try and wrap it up, guys. We'll just get through a few more of these comments, and then love the Toon, black and white forever. Enjoy the wet dreams, guys. There's going to be plenty more of it to come. How with it, lads? Yeah, man. Certainly dreams. Not sure how wet they are. But,
I mean, I'm excited to see what the plan is, because now that there's no football, which is going to be a massive loss, I'll have to retire the lucky shirt now until December. But I'm interested to see what we're going to be doing in January.
Yeah, Luke's in. If we play like we did in the second half of the season, last season, we'll win the league. Well, it's very interesting because, like I've just touched on earlier, Luke, that our form in 2022 has us. It was fifth. It might be fourth now after the past couple of weeks. But in general, like we're kind of fourth or fifth now. If that continues, we might not win the league, but we definitely will. Scientifically, if you want to look at it like that, we would finish in the top 4 or 5 because that's what our form is.
To maintain that focus is hard though, and it's a long old season. Okay, we haven't, but people like Bruno are going. Shaw, they're going to the World Cup. Popey and Carl, Trips, they're all going to the World Cup. So they now have to switch to the World Cup and focus there. And we'll see what happens if we stay there for longer. If they've got an early, got a right back. We did tear Arsenal. Arsenal, a completely different team from. I think
Kenny's right. We did. It gives me hope that we kind of did it only a few short months ago. But like you've just said there, they are a different beast this season. I don't know what Arteta did over
Jesus off the ball. Jesus is his work rate off the ball. I mean, he's not banging a lot in the onion bag, but his work rate and his hold up play is interesting. And if you looked against Chelsea, that the good thing about Chelsea is, and we beat them 1-0. Arsenal beat them 1-0. Right, so that's great. Arsenal don't score a load of goals, but they do score most matches. The interesting thing about Arsenal is they play very well through the press. They're very fluid. They play out from the back. They play through the press really, really well because Chelsea tried to press them and they just made them look stupid. They can work it in tight corners as well. They've got ball carrying ability. Xhaka's playing phenomenally well. Partey's playing really, really well. Unless Partey gets injured at the World Cup, and we'll see what happens. But they're a different team. The only thing that Arsenal have got in their favour is, at the moment they're really strong, but they always waver. They always.
Arsenal are renowned for being bottle jobs. Let's be honest. Over the years, obviously that the Invincibles team, they weren't. We
could have been the second Invincibles if it wasn't for Liverpool, though.
Yeah. Hey, well, this is it, and it's something that's kind of nagging me a bit. And we would be unbeaten this season if it wasn't for that ludicrous amount of injury time added on, and the Isak goal being ruled out, which was quite clearly in line or onside. That would have been some stat to be.
And we're going to get a lot of that, though. I think we had a little bit of it against Chelsea yesterday, where the officials were taking some liberties, and I think we're going to get a lot of that when it gets to the tight end of the season. Some of those decisions might work against us.
Yeah, we'll take a look at this on just before we call it a day. Eddie Howe's done a great job. Team spirit cannot be underestimated. Champions team beats team of championships. Not sure. I think I get the gist of it, Gary. Yeah, I totally agree. Eddie Howe's done a brilliant job, and long may it continue. Really enjoyed tonight. First time on Ben, but I've seen you before, Ben, on Toon Review. I'm the guy who said you look like Chris Ramsey. Yeah, I remember that. I haven't got his accent. I get I get a bit of stick because my accent's a bit more from the weir side of it, with it being from Durham. I'm not a true Geordie in that sense. But yeah, I'll take it as a compliment. So thanks for that, Luke. He's not a bad looking guy, Chris Ramsey. Thank you. But yeah, listen, really enjoyed the show tonight, guys. It's going to be our last one until December. We'll be playing in the cup game before the Boxing Day game, so we will be back slightly earlier now that we've got through that round. I can't remember what date the cup is. Is it the 20th or 21st or 19th or something like that? I'm not sure. I'd be guessing, but yeah, this is it till then. So what we're going to do is try and fill this gap, bridge the gap, is do a few World Cup shows. We've got a few players there. Probably wouldn't have done them if the Newcastle United contingent hadn't been involved. Sorry, Neil, what are you saying there?
No, you're right. If we didn't have anyone there.
Yeah. What's he saying here? Oh, it's a compliment. Oh, cheers, Luke. Yeah. But, Kenny, yeah, this is the one I wanted. Kenny, 19th. So, yeah, we're going to be back probably around the 19th or 20th. We'll do another show then. But in the meantime, we're going to try and do some World Cup shows. Neil, I never really asked you about this, but you're welcome to take part in these. We'll keep an eye on the Brazil games. We'll keep an eye on the England games. Keep an eye on the Australia games and Switzerland games. They're the four main kind of ones I want to keep an eye on, just because of purely Newcastle United related players involved with them. And we'll try and do some shows. And I had a few ideas of maybe doing a kind of like a Transfer Central show. Not necessarily.
Yeah, I was going to ask that.
Yeah, we're going to be bringing them in a lot more as we approach December and January, but maybe just do like a World Cup kind of centered Transfer Central, where we're looking at players that stand out, any wonder kids that we haven't already signed, anyone else that's kind of not on the list already.
Well, the positions that we're looking at. Yeah.
If anybody stands out, we'll get people on, we'll do a live chat, and anybody that's really stood out that we kind of haven't been linked with and you think, yeah, they'd be a good player. I thought we could maybe do a Transfer Central show like that, like players fans would want us to sign from the World Cup. So yeah, we'll
good.
Yeah, man. But so we'll just finish up with the comments. Looking forward to it. I'm from Cambria. I don't know if that's Cumbria, but Sport Newcastle, you're a Geordie. Yeah, Luke. I get you. Yeah, man. But if we win the league, I mean, we'll get a bog wash. What's a bog wash? I don't know if I'm just really old or that's a misspelling, but yeah, man. Right, we're going to leave it there, guys. Thanks a lot for all your comments tonight. It's been a really active show. Had a lot of interaction in the comments then. This is it. This is what we like to see on the show. So we'll post this up live and hopefully we can get a few more viewers after we've kind of aired it live. But listen, thanks a lot, guys. Really appreciate your support. Let's have a quick recap on where we are. We're currently third in the Premier League. We are on a 10-match unbeaten run. We've had 6 wins in a row. We're through to the next round of the League Cup. We've got the best defence in the Premier League. We've got the most clean sheets in the Premier League. And Newcastle United are just absolutely mint. So on that note, we'll see you soon, guys. Thanks a lot for your support. Please like and subscribe to the channel, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and help us grow. This is what it's all about. We're trying to build a community here for all Newcastle United fans to, come and have their say, just like the mouth of the time Twitter is. Kind of, it's all about representing you guys as fans. And this is what we want to do on the YouTube channel too. So, yeah, listen, thanks a lot, Neil. You've been great tonight, just me and you, but hopefully we've kept the guys at home entertained. And I've been Ben from Mouth of the Time. We'll see you in the next one. Take care, everybody.
All the Maggies.
Yeah.